Happy Wednesday to the world out there. Gentlemen, it is football season. We are back. This is the Hawkscast podcast. And with me, as always, Zeb and Ross. Gentlemen, how's it going?
Good.
We are very happy for everyone to join us tonight.
What year is it?
It is too long, too late, too little.
That's a little bleak.
I mean,
the first episode.
Let's be real. So it's kind of a weird preseason schedule. They played Thursday last week. I went a whole Saturday without getting to watch. And here we are. It's already Wednesday, and there's still not football until Sunday. It's kind of weird. The preseason schedule is kind of weird this year.
It's really weird to have preseason games on Sunday, isn't it? And it's
kind of
weird to have 10 days between, and I don't know. It feels weird to me. I feel like I was teased. Like, oh, football's back. I hope not really. Wait for it. 10 more days. Come on.
It is weird. It's weird because, like, if you're going to play on a Thursday night like they do, like, then the next Thursday or at the very latest Friday, you should have a game.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I remember where, like, they would basically cram, like, 3 games into, like, 12 days. And now it seems like they've stretched it out. I don't know what it is, but, I'll be happy come this weekend when there's actual, like, Seahawks football worth watching. We had that preseason game. That was a nice taste, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah.
It was an appetizer.
I would say it was kind of an unfulfilling appetizer, right? Like, there was definitely, like, elements of, oh, yeah, this is Seahawks football, but there really was not a whole lot going on for the first almost 2/3 of that game.
I hate to point fingers, but Gino was making the offense sputter, and Russ didn't get so they said for the first time ever, Russ didn't play like in a preseason game that you would sort of expect him to. He skipped the 4th games before, but not the first. So, like you said, it's a weird offseason all the way around. It's a weird preseason game. First half really didn't have much going on.
But we did get to see what will probably ultimately end up being Paxton Lynch's best game as a Seahawk.
Do you feel that Paxton Lynch in that last half of a game showed more than what Geno Smith can show in a game, but also in practice? Because that's the thing that I think us fans don't get to see. We don't get to see all of the practices, so we don't get to see, like, oh, hey, is someone actually making strides? Is someone showing who they need to be to get a roster spot?
I mean, I don't want to step over question number 1 all over the place, but I don't know. I mean, I think Paxton Lynch made the most of his opportunities. He did that's all you can do, right? You have an opportunity to do the best you can with it, and he made it interesting. He made the rest of because I think we've all just assumed, almost based on body type even, and experience, that Geno Smith is going to win the job. And I never liked that because he actually was more experienced, right? Because, like, what he is. I mean, at least you feel like Paxton Lynch maybe was in a bad situation. He could grow into something more than he was. And I don't know. So he went out there and he had an opportunity. He made the best of it, and we'll see where it goes from now. Geno Smith didn't help himself by getting hurt either, right? Well, not hurt, I guess, but he has to have a cyst removed from his knee. That's going to give a 7 to 10 day window for Lynch to come in and really take hold of that job. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I think he had a sort of a lights out moment, and he was just in the zone. That I don't expect him to be that capable regularly, but we'll see.
I mean, we are talking third stringers, so it's not like he was lighting up anyone. But I will have to say, because it was this weird schedule, I actually missed the first quarter of the game. I was like, I forgot that the game was on because it was at the 7 o'clock time, which is really late for football. Like, most football games are like 5:30 at the latest. It was a game in Seattle, but still, a 7 o'clock game felt super late. So I missed almost all of Geno Smith except for, like, the final field goal attempt that they were able to kick. But the thing that stuck out to me with Paxton,
you didn't miss nothing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I went back and like reviewed some of the tape, and I was like, yeah, I'm really not missing anything. I think the only thing that I missed of note was Penny's pass that he caught for like 27 yards.
Yeah,
a screen pass, and then like the one catch to DK Metcalf.
His one and only.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a nice catch. It was a nice little dig route, so that was cool, But yeah, there was really nothing. But what stuck to me about Paxton Lynch is, yeah, he definitely had like a great game against third stringers, but they all were like pretty solid throws. Like he seemed really accurate, and I don't know if maybe it's like it's the last half of a throwaway game, and Denver's like, whatever, go for it, and like just let him do whatever.
I don't think that's the case. I think he made good decisions. He didn't panic. You know what I mean? He stepped up in the pocket. And yeah, he made some good throws, but I think it was more a case of him just really wanting to do that against Denver. Kind of willing himself to shove it in Elway's face, but it's just a preseason game, so it's not like it matters anyway.
For sure.
I thought he could. I mean, you're talking about it doesn't matter much because he was doing it second and third stringers, and so he should do that well. But that means actually you believe that he isn't inherently a second or third stringer, right? I mean, that means if he flashes like that against a second or third string, that means he's he doesn't deserve to be in that super upper tier of second stringers. Maybe I don't know. To be honest, and again, I'm not to step over question number one, but when I first got to training camp, I think the first thing I did on day one, first hour, was like tweet out that Paxton Lynch, like, I hope he's leasing, not buying a house. Because, I mean, he's like skipping balls into the dirt. But then, I don't know, I thought by second, third, fourth day, I actually, that's why I don't think it's necessarily a fluke in the game. I thought there was signs. There's things he can't do. He can throw and with touch, I think, more than Geno Smith from the pocket. With a clean pocket, he can do that. And if he has to run, like we saw in the game, he can run. I heard him in an interview earlier this week saying he was a running back until 9th grade or something, and everyone's like, it's that mentality. So he can run. The thing he can't do that Seattle sort of requires is he can't throw and run. He can't throw on the move very well. But that's something you can kind of work on and learn. So I don't know. I don't know if it's completely a fluke, guys. I think by third game, you guys will be on board with the Paxton Lynch train.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the backup quarterback, and if we talk about Paxton Lynch past the next 21 days or in any time in the future, we're basically boned for the year. But
we believe that coaching matters and scheme matters, right? So I mean, he hasn't had much experience, and he bombed out in Denver, but. I mean, Denver's experience with quarterbacks hasn't been that great, and you start to wonder eventually, like, if you've gone through 5 different dudes and nothing was working, maybe you're not coaching them right?
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Maybe the scheme works better for him, or maybe he's getting some better coaching, or maybe the talent around him matches him better. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm keeping more of an open mind than I had in late July.
Yeah. Well. The Seahawks open the preseason on the road where they're going to face the Minnesota Vikings. That's the next game, Sunday. Also in the offseason, the Seahawks signed Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner to very generous extensions. But yet they haven't seen any time on the field, which is kind of a rarity because everyone's talking about how much Bobby and Russ want to play, even in a meaningless game. Injuries starting to chip away. We were talking about the injury to Geno Smith. There's injury to Jamarco Jones. That is opening up some opportunities for some players, which is maybe a good thing because we got 3 preseasons game to go. This is the Hawkscast podcast, and we're happy for everyone to join us. Quick shout out to Birdfinger. But gentlemen,
what up, Bird?
Let's jump into number 1. Ross, I know this is something that you have a lot of experience with, so I'm going to kick you off with topic number 1. What caught your eye in training camp this year?
This is going to sound so anticlimactic, but it was kind of weird. What caught my mind was that nothing was really, really strongly sticking out most of camp. There was a lot of camp battles, and like they were real battles. It wasn't like in years past where I went in and I was looking for this or that, and kind of by day 1 late in practice or day 2 early in practice, you sort of know which way the wind's blowing. like I was watching like the cornerbacks and the safeties and the wide receivers, and I didn't come away going like, I know who the guys are now. I know it. I know it. Like last year, I predicted better than usual, but this year, just watching the battles, going, okay, DK Metcalf. It's hard to be a skeptic watching him in person. I mean, I think I tweeted that out at the time as well. Like, I'm a skeptic, but like when he's right in front of you and you're watching him just like blow by cornerback after cornerback after cornerback. Now that's preseason, that's practice, and there's less scheme. I don't think that's really going to work in a game, but I do admit there's potential there. I mean, like I've always thought he's not a bad guy, he's not a bad receiver. I just always see him as like the 45 reception guy, not the 80 reception guy to me. But we'll see. What else stuck out? Like I feel like there's a lot more depth, and that's why it's kind of hard to choose. And I felt like the starting cornerbacks have more attitude this year. They both seem. And Griffin wasn't a rookie last year, but he moved. This year they look a lot more comfortable, and I do think this is the year we're going to think Trey Flowers kind of becomes our more dominant cornerback, even though he's on the right side. And that's kind of what stuck out, really. Again, like lots of depth, and there was just like it was hard to pick and choose. I was really impressed with Homer, but now I'm not because he's hurt, and like he's just going to be one of those pro-size guys. Like if you can't,
no, don't say that.
Hey, pro-size already got hurt, so I mean, we already know what's happening.
Pro-size has been hurt like 3 different separate things already in training camp. They played 1 preseason game, so I don't want to say he's like a pro-size that level, but it's when it's professional, like you have to be available. You have to be able to play. There's a difference between being hurt and being injured. And if you're just hurt and you're not practicing, you're not going to stick with the team, I don't think. And so, especially like Homer, you got to know what your position coming in, some people don't shift mentalities. You play in high school and you're a star and you get to college, but everybody you're only playing on a team with high school stars. And then everybody who's like the massive stars in college gets to play pros, and some people when they get to training camps, it seems like they don't make that adjustment. Like you're not special anymore. You better be working harder than the guy next to you to make this team, especially if you're getting on the team to start as Homer was. So I thought he was going to be like the Kasim Williams this year, like the guy we're going to be really, really anxious about whether he makes the team or gets cut, and we're going to have a lot of angst, but didn't even play the first game, not even practicing, so I was wrong. That could be Bo Scarborough, it could be Malik Turner, it looks like it could be Jazz Ferguson. But Jazz Ferguson's got a super advantage because of his name.
Yeah, that's a great football name.
Yeah, so I think I screwed that up. It's going to be Jazz that we're going to be like wringing our hands over. So we'll see.
Zeb, have you caught any training camp, anything that caught your eye as we head into week 2 of the preseason?
The only thing that I noticed, being that I didn't go to training camp and I was only, privy to the information that I was given, is that the Seahawks, they spent a lot of time during training camp pushing DK Metcalf on the fan base, putting up, clips of his catches during training camp. It just seemed like a little more than usual for a specific rookie who wasn't, a first round star. So
I hadn't thought about that, but you're right.
I think it's interesting that they're really, and Russell himself, even they're selling DK to us. So hopefully that all works out. Or it's a ploy.
That makes me really nervous.
Well, you know what I'm thinking. This is my little conspiracy theory: is they've been very quiet about Gary Jennings, and they're very loud about DK Metcalf.
Nah, but that's not being quiet. I mean, like that's actually true. Like Jennings, Gary Jennings, he disappears at training camp, man. He just disappears.
I wonder if there's a reason for that.
I was glad to hear that the other day, Tony, shout out to Tony, who's not listening right now because I think he has a soccer game. But he went to a practice. He got like VIP access because he's connected. He's a made man.
Whoa,
lucky.
And Jennings had like 8 catches in that day, and they actually made a note of it somewhere else, and so it's legit. But other than that, man, Jennings, like he's been so nondescript, and it was really scary. And it took me a couple of days to notice like something was weird about watching the wide receivers. I'm like, oh wait, the guy I predicted is going to have the better career than Metcalf hasn't made a catch yet. Hasn't been targeted yet. Like 3 days went by, he hadn't been targeted practically, except for like in the 7-on-7, so you can't help but be targeted. But like in full team drills, nah, they didn't call his number. So someone's up there. Plus, he was drafted in the dreaded 4th round, right?
Yeah, that's a bad round.
Yeah.
What caught my eye? Marquise Blair. He blew up a guy. That guy's soul left at his body for a good like half second before it like got sucked back in. That hit was awesome. It's a great football hit. It shouldn't have been flagged. It shouldn't have been reviewed. It was just a perfectly squared up hit. Guy got all body, right? Am I wrong?
I'm not going to argue with you, but I think he hit with the wrong shoulder, and that meant that his helmet got involved.
Okay, I mean that's the technique that I don't understand. But yeah,
3 or 4 years ago, that wasn't a penalty, but like he should have been going with the near shoulder, but he hit with the far shoulder, and that meant like I said, his helmet had to get involved. So
I think that's fair.
But I mean, like, I think that's the easy fix, though. I'm 100% with you. I'm excited for Blair.
I thought was also great was that Pete Carroll after the game spoke so highly of his play. He did have one mistake where he kind of like blitzed when he should have stayed back. I don't know, and it seemed like Pete Carroll was saying like, yeah, he had the option, but he took the bad decision because he like made it too obvious or something, and then they got to play off of it. I think that was his one mistake, but it to me, Pete Carroll giving Marquise Blair a lot of praise after that game and kind of coming into the week, I thought was a pretty promising sign. I don't know if that means he's challenging for a starting safety gig, opposite Tetrick, but Bradley McDougall. But I thought that was pretty solid to hear that, a young safety that we're drafting has some potential and is getting some good pups. So I thought that's the one thing to me stuck out.
I'm so excited for Blair. I hadn't thought much about him before the draft, but then looking up after, he seems to me like the first defensive guy we've drafted in a while that seems like not like a solid player, but like one of those like difference maker players if he can get the scheme done right.
And I think that's what's interesting about the kind of position that he plays, because he is a safety. He's not a big dude. Like he's not a Cam Chancellor, but he's laying the wood down on people, and I think that's something that fans always love to see.
Yeah,
it is.
The only problem is that he's probably more naturally a strong safety, and that's what McDougall's better at as well. So,
right.
But I mean, they've been kind of. I mean, we could talk about this as well, maybe next time. But they've been playing around with their coverages as much. They're not playing cover 2 with their safeties really, but they're mixing in cover 4. They're mixing in cover 6. They're lining the safeties up, but then switching the roles at the snap. Does that make any sense? Like the strong safety will play up, who you think is a strong safety, but then he goes not necessarily single deep, but he'll drop into like quarters. So I was it's clear that they've done some self scouting, and they've clearly, they're on to what we've been saying, where that people are used to the Seahawks defense, and they're still keeping their real defense, but they're putting interesting wrinkles in it. They're doing the safeties, I don't know. I felt like actually in general with the draft and some of the people they've been signing and how they've been playing them, except for the 2 corners on the outside, I felt like they're less concerned with what your title is. You know what I mean? Like you're not necessarily a cornerback or a safety or a strong safety or a free safety or a nickel safety or nickel back or whatever. You're just like a defensive back. You're a football player.
If you're not Trey Flowers or Shaquille Griffin, you're playing somewhere in the secondary.
Yeah, exactly. Akeem King, and they're all just like you're in the middle. You're in the middle. Stop the plays. You're in the middle.
I want to talk about one thing before we move on to topic number 2, and it was the thing that I noticed about the defensive scheme that Ken Norton Jr. is kind of doing in his second year is I think they feel that defensive line is a concern, and what we saw a lot of was a lot of blitzing from places that we normally haven't seen it in the past. Deshaun Shedd, who got re-signed, he got a great sack for the safety. in the third quarter. They were definitely getting pressure from all over the place, and it made the Denver quarterback look very flushed. Obviously, that guy's a rookie, but he didn't handle the blitz well, and I thought it was because Ken Norton Jr. was dialing it up from a lot of different places. I thought that was a really cool thing to see.
It's cool, but it's also a little tiny bit worrisome. Even at training camp, I was writing a little bit about that. There was a lot of like corner and safety blitzes, and not necessarily a blitz because it's technically lined up on the line, but there was people like putting their hand down or don't normally put their hand down and rushing off the edge. And like they're on the one hand, yeah, it looks really, really cool, and it's going to get some rush and some interesting looking sacks, hopefully. But at the same time, it also makes you a little bit worried when they feel like it feels like they feel compelled to do that. Not like, oh, let's put this wrinkle in. You just worry like if they're just like going, you know what? There's just no way Brandon Jackson's getting back there unless Deshaun Shedd is off the edge as well, right?
Yeah, and we're looking at an incomplete defense. We're not seeing a bunch of starters play. We don't know what the team will look like, but it's an interesting wrinkle, and I'd like to see where that progresses over these next 3 games. But let's move on to topic number 2. So Zeb, my question to you: has the extension to Russell sped up the demise of the Seahawks? Russell signed a fat contract. He's making over $35 million on average per year. It's not all guaranteed, not a Kirk Cousins deal, but he's getting some money. And he spent some of that money to invest as a minority owner in the Seattle Sounders football club. So he's living his dream. But Zeb, what does that mean for the Seahawks and their salary cap?
Honestly, the more things develop, and obviously he got a huge contract, but I think the fact that he signed it back in April, actually turns out to be an advantage for us, because now I don't know if you guys have seen, Dak Prescott basically wants $40 a year.
Yeah,
and he probably won't get that, but if you look at it, there's probably 10 starting quarterbacks in this league whose teams would probably be willing to make them the highest paid player. So it's only a matter of a very short period of time before Russell Wilson's contract probably looks pretty team friendly compared to what some of these other guys are going to get. That aside, I've never really bought into the idea that him getting a big contract was going to be detrimental to the team. It's obviously way too early to tell how any of this is going to play out. Nothing about his contract is affecting the team currently, but a couple years down the line, depending on what kind of decisions they make, might be singing in a different tune. But I don't think it's done anything to speed it up at this point.
Ross, what about you? I know you're not like totally 180 of what Zeb is saying, but I know you do have some concerns about manipulating the salary cap. What's your take on Russ getting this huge extension for the Seahawks?
I'm happy for him, and I mean he's putting it back in the community. He just bought part of the Sounders, right?
Yeah.
So congrats to him. That's awesome. And okay, so this year it doesn't hurt us because there's nobody to pay except for Bobby. I mean, like, who are you going to give money to? Like, there's nobody on the team right now except for people who are first and second year players, right? Next year and the year after it, we'll see. Again, I agree with Zeb in the fact that there are 10 other teams out there who are willing to pay hand over fist for their quarterback. And if you're going to pay somebody, you know what? Pay Russell Wilson. Cool. Somebody's got to make the money. But all that money in one position, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, like, I just feel like it doesn't have an immediate impact right now. But for example, we've had Collier go down, and we're not sure about it. We're sitting here talking about our pass rush. We're talking about our pass rush, and we all know that they couldn't have gone out and gotten the pass rush, even if there's somewhere available. They could. What Clowney is available, I think.
Yeah, but why let go? Like, why let Frank Clark go just to bring in Clowney now?
Yeah, because Frank Clark, you could turn into a whole bunch of draft picks. And that's a smart way to go, right?
Yeah, obviously that worked out pretty well.
Just pay cash for one guy, but then turn the other guy into a whole bunch of. I don't know. Again, I feel like it's hard to argue my point right now because right now, literally, like the team is Russell Wilson, Lockett, Wagner, and then a bunch of guys making $1.50.
Yeah.
So there's nobody to pay. But at the same time, that also means we're not very good right now. Like we're not elite. Like no, I mean like we are potentially good, right? But we don't know for sure. We made the playoffs last year. We overachieved. Who knows? But here's the thing, and here's like this is kind of super tangential, but I just want to bring it up because it was actually more like question number one. What caught my eye? I'm sitting at training camp, looking around, and of the probably 80% of fans wear their jerseys to the training camp. Cool. Seattle's kind of famous for that now. And of those 80% of people wearing jerseys, 70% of them were wearing jerseys of people who are not on the team. And I'm not talking about like Large and Cortez Kennedy. I'm not talking about the classics.
Got it. Kenny Easley.
Talking about the LOB.
Yeah, they're talking. There's Richard Sherman and there's Earl Thomas and there's even Cliff Averill and there's all these like the people are not on the team anymore. So what does that say about where we are, right? So if you're gonna pay him, maybe it's a good time. So by the time, like you said, by the time we do have to pay other people, by that time, Russell Wilson's contract's gonna look like a deal. Thanks, Dak. So yeah, I guess it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's not. It didn't speed the demise because the demise of what we were 3-4 years ago was 2 or 3-4 years ago. So those guys all decided to freakishly get injured all in the same game or grow too big of egos that just couldn't all fit in the same room anymore. So they're gone, and we're starting not over because we started over last year. But it's not hurting right now because we've got a bunch of new dudes.
Yeah. I think both of you guys are correct. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of flip it a little bit and say it's not the extension to Russ that sped up the demise of the Seahawks. It's the extension to all the other players that are no longer the team that has led to, the demise. And obviously, we're all very positive on the Seahawks. We all think that they have the opportunity with a Pete Carroll at the helm to field a potential playoff and Super Bowl winning team. I don't think anyone really questions that. There will be levels of how strongly we might feel about that. But that's always the concern whenever you extend someone. How much are you going to get out of keeping this guy for 5-year contract? Are you going to get 3 years out of him? And that is what we saw with all of the former members of the LOB. That was the question. Cam Chancellor was obviously one of the worst. And again, no fault to the Seahawks, but it was one of those, my heart says sign him, but my head says, man, should we really do that?
I said we shouldn't.
Yeah, you said we shouldn't, but you have his jersey. So, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I have his jersey.
But again, that's the heart versus the head. Yeah, the heart versus the head says do one and do the other, right? But I think that's what we're seeing. And this year, all the dead money has fallen off. All the money that the Seahawks owe to these people that are no longer wearing a jersey for our team, they're not on the book anymore. But then it creates the problem of, well, who are you going to spend money on? The biggest contract that they have coming up next, I think, is Jarran Reed. And we'll talk about him in another topic in a minute.
He lost a lot of money. Well, I mean, KJ Wright potentially as well, too. But I think you're exactly right. If we don't say Russell Wilson's contract or extension sped up the demise of the Seahawks, if you were going to say one person did, and that would be Cam Chancellor's money, the result. And if it was one other one, I would say it was Marshawn Lynch. Because I know they'll never say it publicly, but the Seahawks are angry, and they did feel disrespected, and they did feel used, and they did feel like that was a raw deal they got.
I'm not going to say that they feel that it was a raw deal, but I would say is knowing what we know what happened with both of those players, at the Seahawks will regret having extended both players because they didn't get them for the value of the contract they extended them for. I think that's fair for everyone to say. The feelings behind it.
Marshawn played them.
I mean, we're talking about the position that everyone loves to have, but when it comes to paying, no one wants to pay running backs, right? I mean, I don't fault Marshawn for trying to get money, but I don't disagree with your sentiment. I don't feel that way, but I'm not saying I disagree with it.
Oh, I'm going to take your money, then I'm going to retire, but then I'm going to come back, but only if I get to play for somebody else. But don't come looking for your money back.
Yeah, but obviously the Seahawks have a very, very specific philosophy about who they are going to go after money for and who they're not. I mean, we saw the final end of the Malik McDowell roadshow come to an end this summer, and they're trying to go after that money because he messed up big time, right? And they have every right to go for all of his money, and they're in litigation trying to get that. So the Seahawks,
right? But
the Seahawks have made a movement to show when they will and will not do those kind of things.
Just because they didn't go after the money doesn't mean they don't care.
I think it's not an issue about they don't care, but I think they understand what is the message we're trying to send.
Well, that's the thing. They're very, very PR savvy.
But that also, all that does is just build good, good feelings and good bridges and good messaging with all their former players,
I don't know, because to me it looked like when she did it to Marshawn, everybody thought they were now entitled to their extensions, and Cam Chancellor holds out. Was it a good result? We'll see.
Yeah, but Cam Chancellor held out. He's done it before. So, I mean, you look at the route that Bobby did, where Bobby showed up to camp but didn't play, didn't practice, but he was there, right?
Yep.
And he says,
and that's the thing, and that's exactly the behavior you wanted to reward. And when the other kind of behavior earlier cascaded, Earl Thomas ended up not doing the stuff that way, and Cam Chancellor ended up doing things not that way because they paid Lynch, and they let Lynch essentially walk all over them, and everybody learned that lesson.
And again, I don't disagree with your sentiment. Like, those aren't the feelings that I have, but the words you're using, such as Marshawn Lynch walked all over the Seahawks, those aren't the words that I would use. That's all I'm saying.
I know you wouldn't, but
because I would say if anyone walked over anyone, I would say Earl Thomas is probably the worst defender at this point. Not and this is not to take away anything over my feelings about Earl Thomas. I still love him as a Seahawk. I still think he's crazy. But if anything, he's the one that said the worst things about the franchise and about Pete Carroll more so than anyone else, and that includes.
I 100% agree with that. What I'm saying is that potentially Earl Thomas' situation might not even have gone that route if they had handled Marshawn Lynch's better. Marshawn Lynch didn't say anything. I mean, he didn't say anything to the press at all, right? I mean, obviously Earl was the biggest sort of whiny brat on the way out the door. But I kind of respect Earl Thomas because he put his name on it. Richard Sherman first, right?
Yeah, but that's not a surprise, though, right? No one's surprised at the way any of these guys acted. That's all, within their character, right? No one's, sneakily doing something that you didn't expect from them.
Right. I'm just talking about purely even, the football thing. Earl Thomas wouldn't have done, the whole, the I'm not going to show up kind of deal or dance if, I don't know. We'll see.
All right.
I think the Seahawks definitely learned some lessons. I mean, they got sick of it all and they just cleaned house on all of it, right? And they're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, and I think that also created a domino effect. But yeah, back to the topic.
There's a reason Bobby's still in.
The demise was not started by Russell. He is bearing the benefit because all those contracts are off the books, and it allows Seahawks to go ahead and extend him to that huge contract right now.
Very true. All
right, let's go to topic number 3. So topic number 3, this is a special topic for Mr. One, Ryan Adam Davis, also known as P-Hawk. You can find him on Twitter at Ryan Adam Davis. And we're gonna twist it a little bit. But Ross, which rookie position group has the best fight against P-Hawk? If you were gonna say hey, if anyone from any rookie position group is gonna go toe to toe with Mr. Ryan, who has the best chance?
Probably the defensive backs, all those sort of hybrid safety dudes out there. They all have got a bit of a mean streak in them. Also kind of wiry. Good matchup, I think. Wiry, and you just they want to put in not necessarily the dirty hit, but they want to get in the extra hit. Yeah, Blair is out there. Yeah, I'd take that. I'd watch that on pay-per-view.
Zeb, do you have a contender?
Oh, look, every single player on the Seahawks would beat his ass like easily. He's not tough, okay? he, he talks a big game, but that's that he's a talker. He's not a doer.
But don't you suspect that, like, so for example, like some of these like upstanding young gentlemen would come into the fight, think it's a fair fight, and then like P Hawk would like pull out a knife, and they lose because of that.
Well, I mean, if we're talking weapons, I guess it's a whole different situation.
Like,
is this Fortnite?
I feel like Marquise Blair would like come in like ready for that thing, and so like when P Hawk pulls out his knife, he like kind of reaches into his socket, pulls out like nunchucks or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like half the Seahawks' wives could probably take him in a one-on-one in a fair fight.
I'd definitely watch that as well.
I'm going to say, hands down, every single receiver group, every single DB group, every single lineman, every single back, everyone rookie on the Seahawks would be able to take on Ryan hands down. The difference is Ryan will just say some really, really cutting remarks, and then that lineman that throws that punch, he's gonna have a single tear down his face as he punches him out. He'll get a verbal jab in, but the physical punishment will all be received by Ryan. There's no one. And the other thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is Ryan's a family man. He's got kids. He's gotten soft. That's what it is. So he has no shot. He has no chance.
Yeah, you start getting civilized when you have kids. So
yeah. So I mean that's his biggest downfall. And the thing is, he won't admit it, but he's too soft to take a fight right now. That's my opinion.
My advice to anybody listening here who's interested in this, don't get at him on Twitter. Go to Seahawks.net. He goes under the screen name Roland Deschain, like the character from the Dark Tower. Find him on there. Give him hell.
All right, that is topic number 3, the Hawks Kiss Corner. We're going to jump ahead and talk some more real football. We're going to talk about topic number 4. So this is an interesting topic. It's something that came up in the Seahawks world almost a year and a half ago, and now we're seeing the fallout. And topic number 4, Zeb, is has the NFL messed up with the suspension policy regarding Jarran Reed? What's your take on that?
I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I know it seemed like people who have done worse things are not being treated as harshly as he is, but then as more and more of his story starts to come out, it sounds like it's probably the right thing to do. But I don't know nothing about the suspension policy, or are things going to change because of this now? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the issue is, and just for those of you that aren't familiar with what's going on, defensive tackle Jarran Reed was arrested about a year and a half ago in the offseason. No charges were pressed. No suspensions were given out at the time. No charges were done. But it was a domestic issue. So there was allegations of domestic abuse. It wasn't like an ongoing issue. It was like a fight that occurred because people were drinking and being stupid. He was taken in. He was not charged. He was not technically arrested. He was released, and then it kind of went dark. Then a couple of weeks ago, the NFL released that Jarran Reed had been suspended for 4 games for violating their domestic abuse policy, and he had appealed it. He did lose, and that's why they announced the suspension. And like you were saying, Zeb, there's definitely like a lot of questions of like, well, what really happened? And while that's what happens in the report, seems like a lot of worse things that have happened. So not to excuse what Jarran Reed has done, but there's some level of inconsistency. Ross, have you been keeping up on this situation and just kind of like the NFL and how they handle these kind of situations?
Yeah, to a degree. And I don't think it exposes or like I don't think like the NFL like dropped it now. I think it just exposes the flaws that have always been there even more. It puts it in a harsher light. Because earlier in the offseason, obviously, Tyreek Hill had a much more well-known and arguably a much worse, incident. child with a broken arm and whatnot, like a child. And in the end, he's not getting any punishment at all. And it seems like it comes down to the fact that in the end, NFL investigators are not actually like law enforcement officers, right? They have no law enforcement power. They're completely dependent on the goodwill of the community and businesses who have security cameras and whatnot to cooperate with. They can't compel anything. They can't do anything. They can just go door to door and knock and say nicely, please, could you please testify? And in the end, Tyreek Hill's family or his girlfriend or whatever wasn't going to testify, and the kid's too young to testify. The woman, of course, is not going to testify because, you're going to give up your relationship with the multimillionaire? Nah. So don't testify. Whereas in Reed's case, he doesn't have a relationship anymore with the person who he had the altercation, the physical confrontation with. So she's willing to testify. And so he gets the punishment, she doesn't, and that's a huge problem. Where it just comes down to whether people testify or not. And also, the other thing is that opens up players to even, not that I don't believe victims. I mean, in this case, I do. But there are bad people out there, and when you just see like how if somebody's willing to testify, that opens players up to blackmail. So with all these problems, like again, whoever's investigating doesn't actually have investigative powers, and it's the same office that's holding the investigation is the one that decides the punishment, which also decides whether it should be investigated in the first place. They've got to outsource it. They have to outsource it. Jarran Reed probably deserves the suspension, but inconsistency and unfairness is what drives people's resentment levels higher.
Yeah.
And so for the good of the NFL, you can't let this resentment keep growing. You can't have people feel like their team is being singled out, even if you're a player to deserve it. Again, but if we play, for example, the Kansas City Chiefs, if we had played them in the game, well, we're missing a player, but they're not, even though that guy did. Again, it's not that your player doesn't deserve it. It's if it doesn't feel fair, if it doesn't feel right, people get disenchanted with what you're doing. And I think the NFL is playing a dangerous game.
Yeah, I think to your point, that's probably the best way to summarize it. And shout out to Tony, who chimes in and says, unequivocally, yes, the NFL did mess up the suspension policy regarding Jarran Reed. And what I would say is, it's not so much the NFL messed up with Jarran Reed because, there is reasonable cause. You read the police report, if you assume all of those things are accurate, it's a bad look. Hitting anybody under any regards, not a great thing to do. And if that's what he did, then yeah, he loses money, but he doesn't have to go to jail. It's not a great situation for anyone, and the only one to blame is him by putting himself in that situation. So that's the bad thing. That's a punishment he's going to receive monetarily, and that impacts the Seahawks and the franchise and their opportunity to win games, which is obviously what we look at and why that's a mark against him. But to your point, Ross, I think that's kind of like the bigger issue. The bigger issue is that the NFL has created this problem where they can't get out of their way. As much as they can control PR, these are one of the things they do such a poor job at. No one will balk at a drug or alcohol or a performance enhancing drug suspension, but for whatever reason, like this policy, they've done a really, really terrible job at managing and helping people understand why a punishment is getting levied or not. Because really simply, you look at what you said, what happened with Tyreek Hill versus what's happening with Jarran Reed is, if the situation is you can't force people to testify truthfully because they are worried about the money that they are potentially going to lose in their relationship with this NFL player, that creates a huge bias where you're not going to get anything and you're not going to be able to do anything, even though there's really, really horrible ramifications of someone like, Tyreek Hill's child with a broken arm. I don't know what the NFL is going to do to fix that, because what's pushing them to make a change, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, right now, it's Reed's accuser or Reed's victim. She could have back channeled approach him and said, "You know what? Looks like if I go forward and talk to this investigator, you're going to lose 6 games of paycheck. So give me 4, and we'll call it even. I'm not going to talk."
Right.
You don't want that situation out there.
Yeah,
And you don't want a situation where like nothing happens at all, and people just, it's naive. I mean, yes, in the normal world of Me Too world, I definitely 99% of the time do believe victims, but we do have to understand that once somebody becomes multi-millionaires, they can become targets. It does happen, and you with this sort of unequal, unjust system, you open the door for that. In this case, I don't think it's true at all. But just like the mere scent of it, right, can be enough to make a player pay.
Right.
And if you're not going to have a proper investigation as somebody who can't properly investigate, then it just opens, like, it makes it that much easier for a blackmailer situation.
Right. But it goes back to what
can
your
employer do?
You
can't get the security camera footage. I can just say whatever happened, right?
Right. But what can your employer do? Your employer can't bring your partner and say like, hey, we think this employee is a bad person, but we need you to testify against them in front of our HR department. There's no legal ramifications. We just want to know, should we fire this person or not?
That's why I think they just have like a completely independent, like the NFL itself, like nobody from the teams, nobody from the front offices, nobody from the NFL office is actually directly connected. They just, whenever there's a whiff of something, they hand it off to like their system, whatever, and that system has to make the best case they can.
Yeah.
But it's got to be consistent. Consistency is the most important thing, right?
And I think that's the biggest thing they lack. They lack the consistency, which opens up the question, which opens up the conspiracy, which opens up the concerns of like, hey, what are they doing? And
and it's always the inconsistency that drives resentment. But again, like, it's just human instinct. Go back to when you're a kid and your siblings or your cousins did something wrong and you did something wrong and you got punished and they didn't, even though you knew you deserved you still felt resentful. It's just like the most base human emotion. And you're going to just build a resentment in the NFL fan base.
All right, real quick, real honest question for all of you guys. If you were ever going to be suspended in your life for an NFL violation, what would be your violation? Mine would be, it wouldn't be related to PEDs, wouldn't be related to drugs or alcohol, domestic abuse. I'd like to think that that's not where I am. I would be suspended for a Michael Kendricks-like instance, like maybe I gambled too much or like got some insider trading with the little money that I have. I think that would be my offense.
Jeez, I want to hear Zeb's answer. He's got a better answer.
Oh, I got an easy one. Boat party. Boat party scandal.
We're living the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, that's how I'm going down. On a boat.
God, I'm too boring to be suspended for anything now. If I
got one for you, Ross. I know what you would be suspended for. You would be suspended for destroying your phone.
Oh, yeah.
The NFL would be like, Ross, we need to see your phone. We think there's some information on there. And I'm like, you know what, guys? I destroy my phones all the time. I just destroyed my phone. Sorry. And
every Friday, I get rid of all 3 of my phones. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just break them in half.
Well, I would. Yeah, I mean that's actually true. Like anything like going after evidence. Jesus, man. Like you can't look at my computers. You can't look on. Nah. Yeah, I would go down for just like they would just assume I was guilty of whatever like bogus charges out there just because like I would immediately destroy all evidence of everything. That's exactly right.
All right. Those are our topics, but we got some predictions for you guys. So we got some Hawks cast predictions. So Zeb, I'm going to hit this off to you. What is going to be the toughest position battle coming into these next few weeks?
I'm hoping that it is at wide receiver and that it's because everybody is playing fantastic.
Ross?
I guess the starting free safety.
Okay.
I think McDougal's going to hold on to strong safety. So it's just going to be like, do you want a true free safety in there? Or do you want to give somebody who's more like a strong safety but has the athletic ability and the dynamic ability? Or I don't know. Yeah, I think it's going to be the free safety to the degree of free safety still exists.
I think the unsung position battle will be the tight ends. We got a couple injuries to Ed Dixon. We have Will Dissly coming back from injury. We haven't seen a lot of these guys play, so it's kind of unclear. But I think that position is so important to what the Seahawks want to do in regards to their play action, in regards to their passing game, in regards to their running game. Having a tight end that can do those things that they need, I think that will be a huge thing for them. I think that's going to be the tougher battles because they traded for the guy from the Patriots who apparently can't block with shit, but can catch and run routes. So we'll see what happens there. All right. This is an over-under series for Russell Wilson. Is he going to play over or under 1.5? Zeb.
Over.
Ross?
Over.
It's game 2. He didn't get any series in. I think the Seahawks are going to not give him more than 1. He's going to go under 1.5. Prediction number 3. Zeb, over under 2.5 series for Bobby Wagner.
Under.
Ross?
Well, over.
Over.
I don't want his pair. Yeah, let him play the full first quarter.
I'm with Ross. I think Bobby's going to be it there for 3 series. I assume that he'll want to get more playing with those D linemen and those blitz looks. And the final prediction, really quickly, Tony says his prediction for Bobby Wagner is pain. Pain, everybody. And Zeb, the final prediction, which Seahawks team shines the brightest? You can pick offense or defense, first, second, or third team.
I'm expecting to see something out of the first team offense this week.
Ross?
I'm excited to see a second team.
I'm going to say it's going to be the first team. Like, we're going to see Russell Wilson. I'm predicting he only gets 1 series, but what my prediction is, play action, DK Metcalf just runs a streak, and it's just this beautiful pass, in
just
stride,
long bomb,
touchdown. Seahawks Twitter and the Seahawks world goes crazy and start predicting Super Bowl championship, and everyone calms down.
Okay.
You've been watching too much. You've been playing too much Madden.
Man, I got the new Madden coming in. It's coming in next week. Excited for that.
I think Russell's going to get 2 series because I think he's going to lose a fumble on the first one, like on one of those first plays. So they're going to let him go back in for a second one because he doesn't want to just leave it at that. You know what I mean?
Something fluke is going to happen. It's like, no, I need mine. I didn't get mine.
Yeah, exactly.
That's be positive. No, it's going to be like he only gets 1 play because it's like a long bomb touchdown to like Jennings, and they're like, well, okay, you get to play another series. Okay.
And then they're going to do like 3 handoff in a row.
Yeah. To Scarborough.
Hey, man, Bo Scarborough looked not so bad. I'm excited for him.
But I think there's outstanding running back depth. I mean, it's just sad that we don't read running backs anymore because they're going to throw to Carson and Penny. So
I mean, it's going to be Penny, Carson, and McKissick and Bo Scarborough.
I don't know if McKissick has a job anymore.
I mean, they like his return ability.
We'll see. Yeah. But I mean, like, they're letting everybody these days. Literally everybody was out there kickoffs during training camp. Weird. Yeah. We'll see.
All right.
That's why you play the game.
That's true.
That's our show. Gentlemen, do you have any shout-outs?
Shout out to
Tony, obviously.
Obviously. Yeah. Shout out to Tony.
Birdfinger, also, obviously. Shout out to my dude Smoke, M2D6, who had a son a few days ago.
Congratulations.
Little Elijah. Congratulations, Smoke.
Congrats to Smoke, and shout out to Fire26X. Just made that up.
Nice.
That's my only shout out. So
I'm gonna shout out to Ciara for being a strong, independent, minority owner in the Seattle Sounders FC. Congratulations to her and her husband. His name, I forget his name right now. Some guy.
Is that future guy?
Yeah. But congratulations to her. Always cool to see a woman minority owner in a sport like football, or
I want to shout out Sarah
football.
too.
Football.
Football. I want to shout out Sarah too because I had like this sneaky suspicion she was sort of going to be like play the part of Yoko Ono, and she's not. So.
Oh.
Yeah. I kind of feel like I didn't voice it. Did actually have some doubts with like when Wilson's extension was coming up, and I was like, that rumor. I didn't really believe like the source of the rumor, but like the sentiment sort of like made sense too. That maybe Ciara doesn't really want to tie herself to the Pacific Northwest. She wants to be someplace quote unquote cooler, like Miami, LA, or whatever. So I thought she might start pulling a little bit of a Yoko, but no, kudos to her. She's being awesome.
All right, shout out to Ciara then.
They're going to own a baseball team and a basketball team and a hockey team, and it's by the time this is all said and done, watch.
Once Russell
Wilson, Washington.
Yep.
All right, that's the Hawkscast podcast. Everyone, thank you very much. You have a great day. Good night.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.